the fight, yeah, bring on all the lightning. 'Cause I'm looking for a hero, look inside the mirror. I find one, oh, carry the hurt when it gets too hard.
Hey, welcome to this episode of Inspired. I am your host, Takia LaShawn, and I am excited to have my guest this morning, Carissa Doig of Creations and Libations.
Hello.
Hey girl, how you doing?
Good.
Good. So we are going to talk about Carissa's amazing story, her journey, the fighter in her, the warrior. If anybody knows me, they know I love referring to women as women warriors because I just feel in this life is always a battle. There's always something being thrown at you, and you just have to learn to adapt to that and overcome. And you have such an amazing story that starts in your youth, really. And so we want to hear that story. And so again, welcome, Carissa Doig.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Wonderful to have you here. So girl, tell me, we were talking before the show about how we met and your wonderful company, which we're going to talk about that, and how you got started. And I think it's just amazing that you've persevered and done so much. And just tell me, share with us where your story starts. We're going to talk about your health. And,
Sure.
Yeah, so share with me.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis back when I was 25 years old. And at the time, I lost vision in my right eye. And it looked almost like you had a black bridal veil over your eye, and it just kept multiplying and multiplying until the vision was completely gone. And so we went and we had tests done, and we ended up, back then they did a spinal tap to determine whether or not you had MS if you didn't have any lesions on your brain visible in an MRI. And so it came back positive that I had the proteins that would prove that I had MS. Now back then, they weren't really using that form as a diagnosis. That was an experimental way to diagnose MS. And so we didn't know for sure if I had it. And so this doctor was very adamant, you have multiple sclerosis. They put me on a treatment. The symptoms disappeared very soon there afterwards. And so I got so much pushback from a lot of different people. You know, you don't look sick. You're not feeling sick. This is a new thing. Maybe it was just a fluke. Maybe they had you on steroids or something, and that's what caused it. That I just kind of ignored it.
Right.
And for 10 years, it just kind of went away. And there was some funky stuff happening, but every time it happened, I just put it off as, you know, everybody goes through this. Everybody's got pain. Everybody does this. Everybody has trips and has drop foot or foot drop. And 10 years later, I was working, and it happened again in the same eye. And this time I just shut my mouth because I was like, I'm not going through that again. I'm not going to talk about it. We're not going to bring this up. It's just not going to happen. But it slowly started to trickle into the other eye. And so when I started to go completely blind, that's when I knew I had to say something because I couldn't drive anymore. So I couldn't drive anymore, and I couldn't do a lot of other things. And so we went to the emergency room. I got an MRI, and this time I had lesions all over my brain. And so this time the doctor comes back and says, has anybody ever told you that you may have multiple sclerosis? And I said, yes, they did tell me that I may have multiple sclerosis. And he said, well, I'd like to show you a picture of what it looks like, and we want to get you to a neurologist so that you can, you know, figure this out. So in the meantime, I did lose vision in both eyes. And so I was, at this point, legally blind. From there, the relapse just flared completely. And so it was probably the worst relapse I've ever had in my entire life. I lost all function on the right side of my body. Could not talk. My voice would fluctuate, so I had the vocal tremors. So it would go up and down and up and down. The word was stuck in the throat, but it just wouldn't come out. So I had tremors in my head, tremors in my hand, and it felt like there was a block of cement on the bottom of both of my feet, and then from here to here on both my legs, it felt like they were encased in cement, and the muscles just would not move. And so a lot of different things happened. I felt like I went on the tour to MS. It's like for 10 years I had been okay, and then all of a sudden everything happened at once. So I had to explain this again to my family. Hey, guess what? I do actually have MS.
I do actually really have something going on here.
This is what's going on. And it's even harder now because they're 900 miles away. So really it was my husband and I that went through all of this, and there was nobody here to see what was going on. And I clearly remember, I had a family that came down to visit, and I had just gotten mobility back on this side of my body. I'm on the right side of my body, but it wasn't fully there yet. And I remember trying to cook dinner for my in-laws and sitting there and like trying to slice a tomato, which is probably one of the easiest things ever. And I was just like holding the knife and my fingers were not listening to my brain. And I remember my mother-in-law just looking at me very strangely, like, I'm not really sure what's going on here. So it's that whole thought process of it's an invisible illness. People don't understand what's going on until they see it, and when they do see it, sometimes they still can't.
They really don't know how to comprehend.
They can't comprehend it. They don't understand what's going on and how it affects you, because everybody's so different with this disease.
It's interesting what you said. It's an invisible illness, and oftentimes many times things that we can't see, we can't comprehend, we don't understand. It's almost like faith. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. That's literally what the Bible says. So you have this illness that it's going on in your body, but people can't see it. And I imagine you psychologically trying to comprehend everything going on with yourself and with your body. Let's talk a little bit about that with your journey. It was a 10-year span. So I'm curious to know, and for viewers and for people that may be enduring, or the first time that you went, the biggest thing was going blind, losing vision in that eye. And I found it interesting that you said when you went in first for testing that the doctors immediately not diagnosed, but thought that these are symptoms and signs of MS. Why is that? Is that one of the most common traits, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of the most common things that will happen first is that you will use, it's called optic neuritis. It's when your MS by definition is multiple sclerosis, means many scars. Many scars. And so what happens is your immune system is actually eating away the myelin sheath, the protective sheath on your nerve endings. And so what it does is it crisscrosses everything, because that protective coating is now gone, and so the signals are all messed up, and strange things happen, and it happens directly in your central nervous system, so it happens within your brain and your spinal cord. So anything in that particular area can be affected. One of the most common symptoms is the optic neuritis, where it attacks behind the eye and it eats away at those nerves, and that's when you can notice the pain starts first, where sometimes, I mean, everybody's got allergies and things like that, so you don't really think anything of it. I always told my doctor the very first thing that I really noticed is when I went to go shave my armpits, and I had to look down and I was like, what is this pain going on? And so from there you start to get the blurriness, and then from blurriness it progresses to look like that black veil is kind of closing in until it closes in and it's completely gone. And so that's one of the most common first signs. Another very common first sign is looking down and feeling almost like an electric shock
in the back of
your neck. So that's another one. And foot drop is another one. So when you're walking and your foot just drops and you're just tripping over it, you're not necessarily clumsy, but there could be a reason that your foot is heavy and is not being picked up all the way. So these are all just very common, but they're so broad, and they're so common. It could be mistaken for clumsiness, it could be mistaken for allergies, a whole bunch of different things. But this particular doctor saw it, and he was one of a couple ophthalmologist in the country. And I'm lucky to have one here in Charleston, and he's great. And so because he knew ophthalmology and he knew optic neuritis, they decided to do a spinal tap immediately.
So it's interesting because you said it can be mistaken for so many different things, because people may wonder, well, for 10 years you went with it and then a 10-year gap, but it could be mistaken for so many different things.
Lyme disease, anything.
I had a previous guest on that was similar traits with Lyme disease, and she went a while, thinking. So it's so important, and we'll talk about that in your message as far as the importance of women's health and us, being proactive and what's going on with our bodies. What do you feel what was your thought process for you internally as you were going through this? How were you handling all of that?
When I first went through it, I was only 25. And so I kind of went with the flow. I was doing what the doctors told me, but at the same time I had, you know, family, friends, and everybody's giving their input. Everybody thinks it's this, everybody thinks it's that. I also have a cousin who has multiple sclerosis. Now she had multiple sclerosis a long time ago, and so hers is primary progressive, so it's very, very advanced. So it's very different from relapsing remitting MS, which is what I have. And so the symptoms are very different, so we never linked the two together. And so you're thinking, you're listening to everybody around you, and you're listening to their input, and you're listening to what the doctors say, and you're just kind of going with the flow. But it was really frustrating for me, frustrating and scary, because you don't know what the results are going to be at the end, and you're only 25. You don't want to deal with that. At 25, you just really want to go partying with your friends.
Live your life and be whatever normal's supposed to look like.
25-year-old, that's all. Go dating, do what 25-year-olds do.
Exactly.
You don't want to have to deal with all this stuff. And I will never forget the day that I was diagnosed was April Fool's Day. And I got a call from that neurologist, and they said, you know, we found that you are positive for the proteins that cause multiple sclerosis in your spinal cord. And I think I just had a mental breakdown. I just shut down completely. I didn't know what that meant at the time. You know, this was a long time ago. And so we were still figuring out what MS did and how we could control it. And there were very few medications. And so all I knew was I was going to be getting a needle gun in the mail, and it was going to come in a big refrigerated capsule, and I was going to have to stick myself every other day with this needle gun.
At 25.
At 25.
Now, 25 is like, that's a baby, you know? So it's still a lot going on.
And so it was a lot to process. And even just the, you know, okay, this is where you're going to have to rotate your injections. You start here, and then you go here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then butt, and then butt, and then back to arm, and then back to the other arm.
This was to become a part of your daily routine?
This was an every other day
Every other day.
Yeah, so every other day. And every other day you have some kind of injection somewhere, and it gave you flu-like symptoms. So I was constantly sick. So then I got the pushback from the family, come off the medications because this is what's making you sick. So it was a frustrating process.
I imagine. Well, we're going to take a commercial break. You have obviously overcome. You absolutely are a warrior, and we're going to talk about the great things that you have done to just beat this and what you're doing to be proactive in the causes that are supporting you. You all sit tight. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Bringing out the fight, bring on all the lightning, 'cause
Hi, I'm Carissa, and I'm the owner of Creations and Libations. We are a wine and paint that paints in the dark. So we shut out the lights, and you paint in the dark, and your paint glows. We party in the dark, and then when we turn the lights back on, your painting looks completely different than what you thought it did in the first place. The coolest part is that we use this little guy right here, which actually turns into an easel, and then it's got a little pop-out palette on the inside. So everybody gets their own little paint box. You put your painting inside the box when you're done, even if it's not dry, and everybody walks out of the party all happy. So come and party with us. Visit www.creationslibations.com for more information. We do parties of 20 or more, usually corporate fundraisers or corporate gatherings and team building activities. Again, that's www.creationslibations.com, and you can find us on Facebook, Creations and Libations.
bringing out the fight, bring on all the lightning, 'cause
Welcome back. We're joined with Carissa Doig, and we are talking about her powerful purpose as far as how she's been diagnosed with, but not living by or letting define her multiple sclerosis, which I found so interesting. I'll tell you, you just educated me because you said many scars. MS stands for many scars, and you've helped give a breakdown of what how intricate this, you said, invisible sickness, invisible disease is, but you have been so powerful and so prevalent in your purpose and not letting this overtake you, but overcoming. And so I want to talk more about, you talked about, you know, because and we're talking years ago,
Right.
the technology had not made the strides in medicine that it did. You were 25 years old, you were younger, and you know, just having to deal with all of those things that were there, and having people tell you, you know, as far as being diagnosed and now having to deal with it. Let's talk about that. What did the road look like with that? Because a lot of times when we're sick, people justifiably so, they want to, you know, kind of coddle you and make you, you know, tell you it's going to be okay, or you're going to have to live like this, or you have to make these adjustments.
Right.
And anything that, one of the things I've learned, and you said it so powerfully, is that manifestation is a
Yes.
powerful tool. So I want to talk about that as far as the input and what the voices were saying to you and how you
Yeah.
decided what you were going to listen to. Yeah.
So I had a lot of people that were giving input, and at the time when I was unable to see and unable to use the right side of my body, of course you take a turn to negative town. You know, who wouldn't? It's a scary time. And so we heard a lot of, you know, what if you're not going to be able to see again? What if your vision doesn't come back? What if? And I woke up every single day and I would say to everybody that told me that, I would say, I'm going to be able to see again. I'm going to be able to walk again. I'm going to be able to do all these things again. I'm going to be able to sit here and do my makeup again, because you know I love to
That's
sit
right.
and do
Your
my makeup in the
looks
mirror.
good today, girl.
Thank you. So I'm going to be able to do all these things and more, and I'll show you that I'm going to be able, you know, I've lost my career now, but I will show you that I'm going to get back on track, and I will show you how strong I'm going to be, because I will beat this. And it really is that power. And that, you know, to everybody out there that has multiple sclerosis, that's taken that turn to negative town, because it's so easy to do. Depression is a huge part of the invisible illness. You have to get yourself up. You have to find what inspires you, and you have to manifest your own well-being.
Yes.
You really do. You have to say to yourself, I'm going to overcome this, and I will do it. And I don't care if I can't feel this or that today. I'm going to make it a point to get up, get out of bed, make the bed, and do something. Just make little tiny goals for yourself.
Manifest
and
your
achieve
own
them.
well-being. I love that. Yeah. So let's talk about what does that well-being that you've manifest look like? What does that look like?
So I lost my career because I was out for so long, and this, you know, media is very small in Savannah. And so what I did was I started my own business, which is called Creations and Libations. It was a wine and paint boutique. Now we travel all over the country. We're kind of on lockdown right now, but we're hoping to travel all over the country again. We bring these little guys everywhere, and we throw wine and paints. This actually turns into an easel. So if I were to open this up right now, it would turn into an easel.
So
and it's got like a cute little palette
set.
Oh yeah, it's a complete set. You open it up, it's got like this cute little palette on there. You can do the Instagram pose, like I'm a painter. But we paint in the dark, and that's for a particular reason. It's because I lost my vision. And I want people to understand that, you know, things are not always the way they seem. You know, even though you can't see something now, it's going to turn out different and better than you expected. And that's why we paint in the dark. And we're not artists. You know, we're not there to teach you art. We don't sketch it out for you first. We want everybody to look different. It's
behind
the message.
it. I mean, I think that's so powerful, and it's so amazing that in life, we have plans for life. We lay out what we think we want our life to look like and what we want it to be, and ultimately life, God says, I have a different plan. We've heard it say, you know, tell God your plans and he'll laugh and show you his plans. And when you're going through things like that, you can't grasp it and you may not understand it, but look at how much purpose has come out of this. Look at how much purpose. Now, you have a passion.
I do.
You have a passion, and I think you are just killing it. You know, I have a thing, and in this instance, we wouldn't even call it or address it as naysayers. You know, it was family and friends that loved and cared for you and just didn't have an understanding. But just telling people, again, the manifesting your wellness and your overall health and well-being, you not only are overcoming this, you are sitting here looking at me, talking, you can see your vision, you've started this amazing business, but you found a passion as far as, and I'm not even gonna say, I'm gonna let you talk about it, which I think is so amazing. I saw your social media, I follow you on social media, and I see you're doing the thing with the hair and working on
the
that.
Hair hanging too. Okay.
So tell us about your passion and let's talk about all of that.
Sure. So I'm an aerialist. A lot of people hear the word aerialist and they think airplane. What is aerialist? If you've ever seen something like Cirque du Soleil, or you've ever seen cirque performers or circus performers, it's I will do the lyra hoop, or an aerial hoop, where it's most commonly called. It's a big steel hoop. It hangs from the ceiling, or a lollipop if it's stationary on a pole. And I teach, instruct, and compete in lyra. And so this year I'll be competing in semifinals and nationals for the U.S. As a para-athlete, which I'm really, really excited about. But yeah, I saw it on Facebook one day and I was like, well, that looks interesting. Let's try that one out.
And you went after it.
And I went after it.
And here you are competing for U.S. titles.
Yes.
Amazing. And seeing while doing it. I mean, I have to keep going back to that because, again, you talk about manifesting, and I'm going to keep going back to that, manifesting your own well-being. And that's what this is about, this show, this series of, you know, having the hurt, the things that come upon us and how we deal with that pain, but then doing the work. And we talked about that. You have a quote from Andy Warhol, which says what?
It says, they say time changes everything, but really you have to do it yourself. And it's so true.
You have to do it yourself. And that aligns with us talking about doing the work. Everybody has been dealt a different hand in life, but when you pick that hand up, it's up to you how you're going to play it.
Right.
And you determine that I'm going to speak into existence what I want things to be. I'm going to see what I want to see. And it's just so amazing. It speaks mounds to many. I always say to the masses, because I believe that our one little small story, you never know who's listening, you never know who's watching. We talked about how we connected. When I first met you, I thought it was just absolutely amazing. We're sitting here years later. You know, so you have an event coming up. Tell us about that.
So Walk MS has been put on by the National Multiple Sclerosis Society for a very long time right now. And I don't endorse a national, because I'm not an endorser of them, but I'm an MS advocate. So I like to tell people, if you're trying to help a loved one with MS, the best thing that you can do is let them know that you're aware of it and show support. Because, you know, I'm not going to walk around with an orange ribbon on me. I'm the person with MS, but I want my loved ones to help support me. So I think the next Walk MS is in Charleston on April 24th, and it's virtual. So if you want to find more information about that, go on to the National Multiple Sclerosis Society's Facebook page, and then just search Charleston, and then from there you can register.
And I love what you said about advocate. That's just it. That's what this is about. We're advocacy for those that don't have a voice, for those that may not have a platform. We want to be able to advocate, and I think that's great. And again, I know you've educated me tremendously. And so just you coming on and sharing your story, what would be your takeaway for anyone that is either A, enduring this, number one, but B, for those family members, friends, loved ones that really don't quite understand this invisible illness and how they can help support their loved ones?
Ask questions. Ask questions to your loved ones that have multiple sclerosis. Ask how they're feeling every day. Check in on them. Tell them that, you know what, no matter what it is that you're going through, you understand. And whatever you do, don't try to one-up it and say that you know somebody that had something that did this and that. And like it's so common that we hear it all the time. But you just be there for your loved one and show your support. You be the one that wears the ribbon.
There you go.
Show them that you understand and you care and that you're there for them no matter what. Because it's invisible. It's hard. I don't look sick.
Exactly.
At all. But I am.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that compassion is the word that comes to mind for me. Compassion. Compassion and empathy. And a lot of times we can fail, you know, as the human race can fail to empathize, which means to put ourselves in that other person's shoes and see how they're feeling. And what would you say your biggest takeaway for you personally? What has dealing with MS taught you? Because it definitely has not defined you. I think that it has birthed out so much more in you. But what would you say your biggest takeaway for yourself is? What have you learned from this?
Right here, you open your own doors.
Okay.
That's why I have my key.
I love it.
Yep.
I didn't know you had that.
Yeah. You have to open your own doors in life.
Open your own doors. Well,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I really, really, truly appreciate you being on the show. I'm going to take away with that. It's going to continue to resound within me just to manifest my own well-being. That's my biggest takeaway that I would give to viewers. I mean, she shared a powerful story, so much promise in this. And to anyone that's going through, we're going to have information about Carissa and more about her business and her purpose and her journey on the website. And just thank you for joining us for this episode of Inspired with Takia LaShawn. Want more inspiration and encouragement? Join me next week, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Live, and hear more extraordinary women sharing their extraordinary stories. And be inspired with Takia LaShawn. This episode of Inspired with Takia LaShawn has been sponsored by The Brow Company, Beauty Bar, Makeup Studio, and Lash Spa, a Takia LaShawn salon. The Brow Company specializes in exceptional lash, brow, and makeup artistry, natural nail care, full body and Brazilian waxing, laser liposuction, teeth whitening, hair shampoo and blow dry styling, and more. The Brow Company has 2 locations in Bluffton, South Carolina, and on Ladies Island, and are open by appointment Monday through Saturday. Find out more and book your appointment today. Have a business, idea, nonprofit, organization, or event you'd like to talk about? Contact me today to find out more about my sponsor and affiliate partner program segments here on Inspired with Takia LaShawn.
It was around that same time that my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 glioblastoma multiforme, which is almost 100% fatal. I mean, it's just not something that most people survive. And without delving too deeply into the overwhelming pain that caused, because I may have not been a great person, but I loved my mama. I mean, she was my only soft place to fall. I was a new mother. My daughter was 2 years old. My marriage with her father was falling apart, and things were just incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I can save myself.